Another large area that we've delved into as a foundation over the last 8 years is looking at developing country innovators and recognizing that innovation is everywhere, that human ingenuity exists in everyone, and that people like Bill Gates and Albert Einstein are born every day in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, but often lack the resources that we have here in this country to really develop their own ideas. So we've established a number of programs, in particular in India, Indonesia, and Peru, to foster the innovation of local innovators in developing countries who are tackling issues of poverty, health issues, clean water, access to clean water, clean energy, and the like. And what we're trying to do now is to really build on that experience over the last several years and understand, what are the key barriers to developing country innovators, how can we help them overcome those barriers, and how can we also get other institutions in developing countries, universities, governments, and the like, to scale up some of these approaches to nurturing the inventive capacity of their own communities. Which I guess leads me to the second theme that the foundation is focused a lot on, and I know Phil has focused a lot on this with his team at NCIIA too, which is figuring out pathways to scale. Once you have a technological innovation, then how do you ensure broad adoption of that innovation and the scaling up? And I think one thing that we've learned a lot about at the foundation is the work of NCIIA and the team there in terms of their constant innovation of new programs and approaches to helping with this question of scaling. So when we spoke with the E-teams yesterday, it was really exciting to hear how much they had benefited from some of the more recent programming of NCIIA in terms of scaling up their ventures. So for example, the Invention to Venture workshop series, which is a relatively new addition to the NCIIA portfolio of programs, has been dramatically beneficial, I think, to a number of E-teams that really help them figure out how to get their ventures started. Similarly, one of the E-teams mentioned a grant writing course that they were able to pursue through NCIIA that helped them write grant proposals to get more funding beyond their initial E-team grant. And then even more recently, the Venture Well program has been established at NCIIA with funding from the Lemelson Foundation to provide sort of some resources for some of the greatest advanced E-teams that are sort of graduating from the program to get an initial bit of venture financing. But perhaps most importantly, Venture Well is providing the mentoring and the coaching and the networking that these teams needed, and so that these teams need. One of the teams yesterday mentioned the mentoring that they received from the angle of financing and raising venture capital, and how instrumental that had been in their level of development to the next stage. That in fact was perhaps more important than the $50,000 financial award, because they were both mechanical engineers and really needed help thinking about how to talk to venture capitalists. So we are also doing this kind of work in developing countries, figuring out these pathways to scale for technologies and innovations that could benefit the 3 billion people living on $2 a day. And how do we really think about getting the technologies that are needed by these individuals to them in the most efficient and effective manner. So the foundation over the last several years has been financing for-profit and non-profit enterprises that have figured out very creative ways not only to design very affordable and low-cost technologies, but really creative ways to market those technologies in environments which are very challenging to reach consumers, often illiterate consumers, very dispersed consumers lacking access to modern media. So we've really had the pleasure of working with a lot of innovative organizations who figured out how to develop films or radio programming, or using music stars like rap stars in their own cultures to really get the word out about technological innovations that could benefit people. And we've also learned how important, I think it's true in the US too, but perhaps even more important in developing countries, the value of luck and just sheer connections to the right people at the right time to get an innovation adopted. There was a gentleman who was a grantee of the Lemelson Foundation who told me at a conference recently about his experience working in Vietnam with neonatal technology. And he really believed in their technology. It was a very important technology for averting infant deaths in developing countries. But he had a very hard time sort of reaching the regulatory standards and convincing people until he met this one doctor who was a very important doctor in Vietnam, and she began testing the technology and really came to believe in it and started using it in her hospital and seeing the results. And it just so happened that her brother-in-law was the Minister of Health in Vietnam. And so it was, a long path to get to her, but once she was convinced and had had that connection, this technology was very, very broadly adopted and is now being disseminated more broadly through Southeast Asia. So we're learning as we go about not just the elements you can control, but also the luck that's needed to really bring innovations to scale. So I think I'd just like to close to say, NCIIA has been an incredible program and source of inspiration for the Lemelson Foundation. I think we have learned so much from how you all have developed this program and the work that the student teams are doing, that the faculty in this network is doing. It's a real source of learning for us and reflecting on how we work both in the United States and now globally. So thank you for that, and we really look forward to continuing collaborations and dialogue on these topics that I think we're all very committed to in terms of thinking about how to nurture innovation, invention, and entrepreneurship to drive prosperity in the 21st century.